Dan Markel was a bright and talented young law professor at Florida State University in Tallahassee. He had 2 children with his wife, Wendi Adelson. But when Dan and Wendy's marriage broke up, things got very bitter, especially concerning the custody of their children. Wendi wanted to relocate 400 miles away in South Florida, where her parents, Harvey and Donna, lived and ran the family's very successful dental practice. Wendy's brother Charlie also lived there and was also a dentist. In court, Dan was winning, and the judge was not on board with Wendy's plan to move the children away from their father and away from Tallahassee. But in the end, Wendi did move to South Florida with the children. That's because Dan was shot and killed in his driveway. It was murder for hire. Wendy's brother Charlie was sleeping with a woman named Catherine McBanoa, who was also sleeping with the father of her children, Sigfredo Garcia. Charlie paid Catherine to get Sigfredo and his friend Luis Rivera to drive from South Florida to Tallahassee to commit the murder. All 4 have been convicted, and now Wendy's mother, Donna, has also been charged. Tonight, we take a look at newly obtained divorce documents and what they reveal as we continue our investigation into the murder of loving father and law professor Dan Markel.
I'm Wendi Adelson. Thank you so much for joining us tonight here on Closing Arguments. Let's begin the way I always begin when we talk about this case, this story, this murder for hire. The victim, Dan Markel, was a loving father. That's why he died. That's why he was murdered. Because he would not compromise. Would not compromise when it came to spending time and being there for his children. He wasn't going to be bought off by money. He was going to do everything he could to make sure he was there physically, mentally, spiritually, financially to support his children. And his ex and her family wanted those kids 400 miles away. And in the end, his ex-brother-in-law hired 2 guys to drive 400 miles to shoot him and kill him in his own driveway. It was murder for hire, and all 4 of them have been convicted now. You're talking about Charlie Adelson, the ex-brother-in-law. He's a dentist. The woman he was sleeping with, Catherine McBanoa, who sort of acted as the broker to get her, the other man she was sleeping with, the father of her children, to get his friend, the Latin king, and take care of Dan. That's how this went down. They've all 4 been convicted. They're done. They're done. Yeah, they can file appeals, but right now they are done. But at the center of all of this, and we go back, is what happened between Dan and Wendi. D-I-V-O-R-C-E. It was a divorce. It was bitter. It was not pretty. There was a divorce, and there was also a custody battle as well as to how and where these children should be raised. And that is really the epicenter of everything that happens here. It's what I'm calling the case within the case, right? We're covering the criminal cases now and trials. But they all emanate from this divorce. And the question now, as ex-mother-in-law Donna Adelson has been charged for all of this, was this her M-O-T-I-V-E motive for all of this? Was she the one pulling the strings? Was she the one whispering in Charlie's ear to get this done? That's what prosecutors are alleging. And tonight, what we're doing is we're going through some of the divorce papers and things that were filed to get a sense for what was going on, and would this be enough to take someone from, litigation over, custody of children happens all around the country every day in courthouses from coast to coast. But in this particular case, that things get so personal, so heated, so bitter, that it would compel a grandmother to have her grandchildren's father murdered? That's the case. And prosecutors have proven it against the ex-brother-in-law. Now the question is, can they prove it against Donna Adelson? So I want to take a look, and this is a real significant part, and it was talked about during the course of the trial. The motion that were filed by Dan in all of this. Let's put the first one up there. On 3 specific occasions, this is alleged by Dan Markel, on 3 specific occasions in November of 2013, the children informed Mr. Markel, that's Dan, that Abba, which is dad, Abba, grandma says you're stupid. When queried as to why grandma, the maternal grandmother, we're talking about Donna Adelson, would say such things, the children replied jointly that it is because, quote, she says you, meaning Dan, are trying to take her sunshines away from her. In December of 2013, the youngest son further stated to his dad, Mr. Markel, in front of his former wife, Abba, grandma says she hates you. So here's the allegations that grandma, Donna Adelson, is influencing her grandchildren to not like and to be influenced as what they think about their father. So Dan, in his motion, was trying to prevent that from happening any further. Take a look. Dan Markel moves for the following relief, meaning this is what he wants the judge to order in the case. Enjoin the former wife, Wendi, from allowing maternal grandmother, Donna, to have unsupervised time with the children, consistent with the first right of refusal, and to impose appropriate limitations to safeguard the children from being subjected to disparaging comments about their father. Now, if you're the grandmother, Donna Adelson, how personal are you going to take this? And is this one of those things that kind of takes her from grandmother bad-mouthing her former son-in-law, the father of her grandchildren, to whispering in her son's ear to get somebody to kill Dan? That's what prosecutors are saying here. And the more you read and the more you get into this, it seems very plausible from the evidence that I saw in the trial of Charlie Adelson. Donna's got her trial coming up. She's presumed innocent right now, but let's see how all that evidence plays out. But I want to get more insight into what was happening here. Special guest joining us tonight from Toronto, Ontario, Dan's mother and the author of the book, The Unveiling, A Mother's Reflection on Murder, Grief, and Trial Life. Definitely worth reading. Ruth Markel is with us again. Ruth, great to see you tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you. What a pleasure to be here. And a Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year. Happy New Year. So I want to go back to the divorce and when Wendi and Dan are splitting. Would you describe the moment you found out that this was shocking? Were you blindsided? Was Dan blindsided by Wendi deciding to end this marriage and file for divorce?
No, he wasn't blindsided. The way she did it, he was blindsided, and I'll make a distinction. In the summer of August of 2012, Wendi and Dan were up north with us in our country cottage in Ontario with the boys, and Wendi said she had to get a job interview with Human Rights Watch. She extended her stay about going to New York, so they were up there for about 2-3 weeks, and she came back, and in that period of time already, there were clues that there was going to be a serious situation. Certainly to Phil and I, Dan's father, and we were concerned, and so was Danny. Danny didn't like the idea that she sprung this interview a week before they left to come to Canada, and it was he had no idea. And also she had made other arrangements prior to that that we found out later, which was that she had taken the parent stabilization program, which is a course in Tallahassee in July, which already meant that she was planning a very, very major upheaval, which she did. So this was August. In September, Dan was away, and she called him on the telephone when he was lecturing in New York City, about to start a lecture. And she said, "I want to leave you, and I want to break up." And Dan was shocked, because that's how you do it. So he canceled his lecture, and he got on a plane, and he called us right away. So we were talking to him as he went to the airport, and when he came home to Tallahassee, he got on the phone with us again as he entered the house. And she had really disrupted the whole house. This was a big separation, which already told you that this is not going to be a pleasant divorce. And she took many of the major, pieces of furniture between them. And she also emptied out her half of the bank accounts. And the upstairs, the bedrooms where the kids slept, Dan was devastated. He started to cry when he walked in. There was totally no resemblance of the children's life in the house. And in the cupboard were small clothes, like if they were 4 and 3 at the time, she maybe left them in the cupboard size 2X. I don't know if you know the distinctions, but smaller clothes. So there was nothing really that was useful. He was devastated at what happened upstairs. And he went downstairs to the master bedroom, and there were divorce papers on the bed. So that was like a total shock, and not with equal custody at that moment. And the children weren't home, and nobody knew where they were, and where was Wendi.
And there was nothing, was there like any moment that precipitated this? Like sometimes couples can get into a big fight, there can be accusations of this or that. Was any of that happening? Like one big moment, some blow up, so she's got to get out of the house?
No, it wasn't a blow up in this period. There was actually a very first serious signal in 2011. Dan was speaking in Israel, and when he came home back to Florida, and we were there because it was Christmas break, and when he came back from Florida, he found out that Donna and Wendi, who had been there together, had given the children shrimp, and they had given them all the kinds of foods and bacon that are not part of the Jewish dietary law. And you could tell already, he knew already then that there was some really, really serious stuff. And Donna had actually had some kosher turkey for American Thanksgiving, but by the time the kids came back after a whole month, everything was totally disrupted and sabotaged. And after that point, Dan and Wendi went home to Tallahassee, and they started to have marriage counseling. So I wouldn't say that there was a blow up prior to the September event that Danny called his Pearl Harbor, but there certainly was a lead up in the earlier months.
Now, as everyone who's been following this story knows, your son Dan, brilliant attorney, a law professor. How involved was he in the day-to-day litigation of his, let's begin with the divorce and the custody issues? How involved was he in terms of figuring out what motions to file and what they should allege, et cetera?
No, he was very involved. He took it seriously, and so did Wendi, for that matter. They were both lawyers. It was not a compatible situation all the way to the point of the divorce from the separation. There were many disputes about the coordinating practices from the court about if Danny was able to see the kids or talk to the kids after the third night or fourth night, whatever they had agreed upon, to see the children on FaceTime. Wendi didn't always make herself available. There was a lot of stuff happening, and there were disputes, and certainly both of them, through their lawyers and on their own in that respect, initiated quite a few of the attempts to get things resolved, but they really weren't resolving.
Yeah, what troubles me, it just seems that two smart people who have children, that there would be some, all right, we're splitting up, let's have a meeting, how do we break this to the children, and how do we make it as smooth as possible for them rather than this abrupt just up and leave. That part really, really bothers me. Did that bother Dan a lot?
You started out the show tonight realistically, actually talking about Donna, and Donna was the major interference. Okay, so this is not a normal relationship now. It's like, Princess Diana said there were 3 in the marriage, and there were 3 in the marriage, and that is the problem. When Wendi and Danny had agreements to take kosher food to the daycare, Donna was the one who came in and said, "Don't bother giving them tofu hot dogs. Don't do that." And then she takes them to McDonald's and gives them cheeseburgers. And then she disrupts the activities. And so you're not dealing with a couple. You're dealing with a threesome. And Donna liked to call the shots. Donna definitely organized, all of the activities of the family. I would say if you were writing a symphony, she wrote the score, she was the conductor, and she also played everybody's instrument. So I think that you're not dealing with a normal rift in a relationship.
I want to pull out a different part of one of the motions that was filed in this case. Take a look at the screen, everyone. Again, this is from papers that were filed by Dan. In July of 2012, prior to the separation, Ms. Adelson had gone to the safe deposit box and, without permission or notice to Mr. Markel, took whatever she wanted, including various pieces of valuable jewelry from Mr. Markel's family. The former wife, Wendi, declared that if Professor Markel's 96-year-old uncle, Lazar Lapidus, asked for the jewelry back that had belonged to his deceased wife, a Holocaust survivor, then Miss Adelson would, quote, give it back to him. Professor Markel sent former wife a letter from his uncle Lazar asking for the jewelry back. Former wife curtly refused to return the jewelry, claiming that it was not part of the marriage settlement agreement. What can you tell us about this piece of jewelry and the significance and what happened here?
Well, Wendi still has it. That's the bottom line. And she did take it out of the box without any conversation. And it's a very unfortunate situation because my uncle was able to be saved coming out of Germany. And as many people might know, or they don't know, people brought back diamonds as portable wealth. And this diamond came back as part of his entrance into Canada, and he gave it to his wife as part of her engagement ring. And the irony here is that Danny gave it to Wendi, and Wendi wore it a little bit, but on the wedding day, Wendi had her own grandmother's ring, and she wanted to wear it, which everybody agreed to. So Wendi had other engagement ring. This was not something that she specifically needed this diamond for. It had no real emotional value to her, and basically she took it for the money and kept it.
To me, that speaks volumes. About it. And the fact that this was her original ring and she got a different one, which was her grandmother's, I get it. Is that something you think that Donna wanted? Was she part of that conversation?
I'm sure Donna was very much respectful of her mother. And, there is something sometimes if you have some kind of emotional attachment to that. And Wendi actually, I believe the grandmother lived with them a little while. So she also might have had some emotional attachment, but nobody was challenging that. I mean, that was nothing that Danny even raised, and none of us for sure not. We were not even around at that point. So there was no issue really of what ring Wendi could wear. And she could choose to wear whatever she wanted to, but it had no real personal value to her other than a financial one, and probably to spite Danny.
Yeah, I'm sensing some of that, a lot of that, as we're reading through all these papers. Ruth, I want to thank you so much for joining us tonight. Always great to speak with you. The Unveiling, A Mother's Reflection on Murder, Grief, and Trial Life. A great read, especially for Court TV viewers, because you watch these trials and you see how victims and their families are impacted, but to really get insight into what it's like, it's worthwhile to read that book. Ruth, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, and thank you for keeping light on this horrible story.
We absolutely will. All right, folks, when we come back, we're going to bring in our own experts, take a look at more of this, plus coming up next hour.
In Las Vegas, Nevada, the man who leaped over the judge's bench back in court facing brand new charges, and prosecutors are calling it attempted murder. We have the latest.
You're being charged with count 1, attempt murder, victim 60 years of age or older, a felony. Count 2, battery on a protected person resulting in substantial bodily harm, victim 60 years of age or older, a felony.
Worked hard all my life. I learned the secret to success is speaking in your authentic voice. And I bring that lesson to my show every morning.
Opening Statements with Julie Grant. Weekday mornings at 8, 7 Central. Only on Court TV.
A Connecticut mother goes missing. Now, her estranged husband's girlfriend
Stands trial for her alleged role in the disappearance.
The Missing Mom Conspiracy Trial. Live coverage begins this week only on Court TV.
When did you separate from Professor Markel?
In the fall of 2012.
Whose decision was it to separate?
It was my decision.
Do you recognize the exhibit?
I do.
Is it a fair and accurate copy of your divorce file?
It looks like it, yes.
All right. And is it fair to say this was a contentious litigation process that you had with your ex?
It was.
It was contentious, to say the least. Dan Markel and Wendi Adelson, the divorce, and then the ensuing custody battle that continued past the divorce. Take a look here. I'm going to give you a flavor for what was going on here and how really it all started, at least officially started. On the weekend preceding Monday, September 10th, 2012, while Mr. Markel was away for a short business trip, Ms. Adelson abandoned Mr. Markel and their marital home, taking with her the couple's 2 toddler children, and with the help of her parents and professional movers, whichever furniture and belongings she wanted for herself and the children. She left behind no address for the children, no pajama bottoms or clean socks, no diapers, no wipes, and not even a bed for their eldest son. Just a crib mattress on the floor. She took numerous non-marital items, such as the former husband's tennis racket and family jewelry, as well as hundreds of thousands of dollars in cash and equities from their bank and investment accounts. Among the things she left behind on the bed, however, were divorce papers dated September 5th, 2012, 5 days before all this, signed before Mr. Markel even went on his trip. This abrupt and cruel departure shocked Mr. Markel, who in a 6-year marriage unmarked by any abuse, addiction, or infidelity, was devoted to his wife and children. And we know that during the course of this custody battle, that Wendy's brother hired people to murder Dan. We know that. The jury told us. Let me bring in my guest. Joining me tonight in Orlando, Florida, psychotherapist, CEO of Life Counseling Solutions, Dr. Janie Lacey. In Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, family law attorney Jennifer Brandt. And in McKinney, Texas, prosecutor, defense counsel, creator of Jury Trial Mentor YouTube channel, Carl Steinbeck, who knows everything about this case inside and out. Trust me. Okay. Let me begin here. Jennifer Brandt, how normal is what I just described to you? 2 adults, there's no abuse in the house, no one's getting beaten up, you've got children, someone goes away for a business trip, but all of a sudden everything's gone?
You know, Vinny, it happens. I wouldn't say it's normal. I wouldn't say it's routine. It's not the normal divorce, but there are certainly situations where this exact type of scenario happens. Someone goes away, the house gets cleaned out, the spouse and the kids are gone. And it is a rotten way to start a divorce, because if that's how you're starting out, clearly there's not going to be any real chance, at least initially, of
let me ask you this,
collaboration.
Can one parent just grab the kids and take them and not let the other parent know where they are and take all their stuff? I don't get that.
They shouldn't. They should not do that because it certainly doesn't look well in the eyes of the court. And the
Sounds like kidnapping.
Upset. It is not kidnapping though, Vinny, because both parents have equal rights to the kids. Either parent can take the kids anywhere. I mean, you could take your kids on a trip. You could take your kids to the family.
Without telling the other one where they are or where you went?
Well, during
we got to change those laws, Jennifer. What's going on?
Well, but it is not the way to start out a divorce.
No.
It is not the way to start out a custody matter. And judges get very angry about that and usually punish the parent who does that type of thing. So it's a big no-no if you're starting out a divorce.
All right, Dr. Janie Lacey, your thoughts about what happens to, let's begin with young children who, Wendi, for whatever reason, didn't want to have a conversation with Dan about how to explain what was about to happen to the children and figure out a smooth way to do it. What could it do to children just being ripped out of your house and gone and separated from your father like that?
Well, at the age that the children were when all this was going down, it's a very, very important developmental time because they're not necessarily may not know what's going on, but they're going to feel it, right? So whether it's the anxiety, whether it's the tension, all of that stuff gets caught in these children's nervous system. So we know that there would be an effect for these children, regardless if they knew what was happening or not, and not having that level of consideration for them and not understanding what's happening, that confusion, that anxiety, and depending on how mom was positioning the stories and narratives to the children can have a short-term as well as a long-term effect based off of everything that they've probably experienced firsthand.
Carl Steinbeck, something that jumps out to me in this part of these divorce papers that we're taking a look at tonight, with the help of her parents and professional movers, how much of a role did Donna Adelson have in all of this, and in the divorce, in the separation, and the way it all went down?
She played a key role in this whole thing. She generated a lot of the vicious hatred and cruelty directed not only towards Dan, but it also appears that way towards the kids as well, because the kids have really pretty much for the most part been cut out of the Markel family tree. And so I think this is really going to backfire on them when this goes before a jury. And you bring up that denial of visitation, it really strikes home for Donna, and especially will strike home for Wendi when she faces her trial.
Let's take a look at this now. You ready, Jennifer? You watching?
I'm watching.
Okay. Former wife filed a false and misleading financial disclosure form. The financial affidavit, which is required to be produced under the relevant Florida rules, suffered from the following major errors: omitting the former wife's retirement account worth $145,000, omitting an account that at the time of separation at Charles Schwab worth $50,000, listing the value of the car, the jewelry in her possession, and all other personal property at zero, understating her then salary by several $1,000s. Okay, I get it, right? You're getting divorced, you want to get as much as you can, but you do have to be kind of honest about what you have. Like, what's your take on why alleged errors like this would be made? Are they made on purpose? Are these like big obvious ones that like anyone separating, all right, how much money are you making? What accounts do you have? Is that pretty normal? Or do you think this could be an honest potential error that was made?
Well, look, Vinny, I mean, you do have to disclose all of your assets, your finances, your income, and these things are usually readily known to you. I mean, how much is in your retirement account? Do you have a retirement account? I mean, even if you're not aware of it, you usually are told by your attorney in the court to find out what is it that you have. And usually these certifications, financial disclosures are usually signed or provided under oath. So you're signing a certification or a verification that this is true and correct, just like you would testify in court that it's true and correct. And then sometimes it carries the same penalties of contempt if you're not accurate in these filings. So yes, could people make a mistake or slightly misstate something or forget an asset? It happens, but this sounds like a litany of things that were forgotten or misrepresented or not represented at all. So it sounds like there was some dishonesty in these disclosures.
But wait, there's more. Take a look at this. More of the allegations made by Dan in these divorce papers. The former wife is not a helpless character in this drama. She's a 34-year-old public interest lawyer, the winner of numerous national fellowships and prizes, who simply helped herself to $600,000 in cash, liquid equities, and other assets upon separation. She makes six figures in a low-cost city and has wealthy parents who placed her in a financial cocoon. And upon belief, by paying her legal fees, they allowed and encouraged her to take the most aggressive and unsubstantiated legal postures possible because there would be no financial consequences for her doing so. If she wanted to leave the marriage because she fell out of love, that is one thing. But she could have done so without taking more than the necessities so that a proper and fair distribution could have immediately followed. So, Dr. Janie Lacey, when looking at cases that I've studied through the years of divorces, the bitterness between people manifests itself in two ways in the divorce. Money and custody. Money and custody. Do you think, is it greed or is it being vindictive and just trying to take as much as you can from him because you hate him? Or is it like, I deserve this? Where do you think it's coming from in this scenario?
When we look at these scenarios that are very similar to this, it's not in how the relationships begin. It's usually how they end, that people's true character shines brightly. But when we're looking at the statement that there was no addiction, there's no infidelity, right? And then we're looking at her actions, we're going to look at this as emotional manipulation, which is kind of telling us that there was probably a strong lack of empathy at this place for her to be so calculating and to do things and to blindside, right? It's a chess move when we look at the emotional manipulation that happens between couples, and you're looking at this struggle for power and control and getting these things on the upper hand by eliminating things, manipulating things, right? So when we're looking at this, there probably was these things that were at play that my assumption would be that she had at play long before she pulled the carpet underneath him that he was blindsided for, because that emotional manipulation is usually they're not showing their hand. It's more passive aggressive behavior in the relationship dynamics that we see that turn toxic as this relationship did.
So Carl, where do you think the bitterness was coming? Do you think it was Wendi, or do you think it was Donna kind of in Wendy's ear all through this? Because that's going to be perhaps the allegation by prosecutors that Donna is the one really fueling the bitterness in what is happening here between Wendi and Dan.
Right. I think Donna had more of the uncontrolled rage towards Dan, but Wendi was the one that was feeding her all the details to get her to that point of rage and to the point of wanting to get Dan murdered and executed in his own garage. So if you really think about who was starting the whole chain of events, it was really Wendi more than anybody.
Fascinating. Fascinating. She hasn't been charged. Just have to always got to remind folks.
No.
She's been a witness with some level of limited immunity when she testifies, but she has not been charged yet. And we shall see. All right, everyone's staying where they are. When we come back, we're going to talk about the other big issue in this case, which is custody and the relocation of the children. Was that the motive for murder?
I've worked hard all my life. I learned the secret to success is speaking in your authentic voice. And I bring that lesson to my show every morning.
Opening Statement with Julie Grant. Weekday mornings at 8, 7 Central. Only on Court TV.
A Connecticut mother goes missing. Now, her estranged husband's girlfriend
stands trial for her alleged role in the disappearance.
The Missing Mom Conspiracy Trial. Live coverage begins this week only on Court TV.
And that's the filing in reference to your motion for relocation?
Yes.
Paragraph E references the job offer. The wife also desires to relocate to South Florida in order to provide a better quality of life for the children. by increasing their access to close family and providing more stability and consistency. Who is the close family in South Florida?
The close family would have been my mom and my dad and my brother.
And which brother is that?
My brother that's here today.
Charlie Adelson?
That's correct.
Okay.
It's what it's all about. Wanted to get those kids down to South Florida, away from Tallahassee. Who wants to live in Tallahassee? We live in South Florida. That's where Grandma is and Uncle Charlie. All right, so let's take a look here. This is the order that was filed by the judge in response to the wife, Wendy's petition to relocate to South Florida with the minor children. This court does not find that wife has met the burden of proof that a relocation is in the best interest of the minor children. The court orders the parties to mediation to resolve the remaining issues pending final hearing in this case, currently set for July 31st and August 1st of 2013. Let's take a listen to more of Wendi Adelson now, talking about an email that her mother sent her.
It reads, however, the rest of your life and consequently Dad's, mine, and yes, even Charlie's will be affected by how well you can perform/act before July 31st. You need to be a good actress you can be a good actress when you want to. I've seen you in action. You need to put on the performance of your life. Jibbers hasn't beaten the Adelson family yet. Who's Jibbers?
Jibbers, she's referring to Danny.
So in this, again, your mom is referencing how everyone's life is being affected by this relocation, including your brother, Charlie. Do you agree with that?
That is what she said, yes.
All right. Is your mom overprotective of you?
Yes.
All right. And is it fair to say she's, a little on the controlling side?
I don't think she's controlling, but she's definitely overprotective.
All right, Carl Steinbeck, what do you see as the significance of this email from Donna to Wendi?
Right. I think that the email shows the level of hatred and the desperation, really, they had to win this case. The Adelsons were not going to lose. The Adelsons had to win against Dan, and they were going to lose badly against this judge. This judge was going to see through exactly what kind of shenanigans Wendi was playing. She was not acting in the best interest of the children. I think Dan went into a lot of good details explaining how he was denied the first right of refusal for visitation for the two boys. And so you get this whole flavor that things were just really being viciously and intentionally directed against Dan, just to really get under his skin, just really to upset him. And, you think of the irony of it. It's like the Adelsons, Harvey and Donna, they could have easily moved up to Tallahassee. They're pretty much ready to wind up their practice and whatnot. So instead of doing that, they thought, it's better to kill Dan Markel to get the kids down there. And everything worked beautifully for many years for them that way.
Let me ask you, Dr. Jenny Lacey, two things here. One, this relationship between mother and daughter, Donna and Wendi, and how you can get to that point, because at a minimum, Charlie ordered this hit. Like, how do you go from a battle in a courtroom to hiring a Latin king and his buddy to perform a hit and a drive? Like, emotionally does someone get there?
Well, emotionally, people do get there, and they start with that, as we just heard my co-panelist mention, with this hatred, and then they almost look at this person as an object to be removed, and this lack of empathy and this dehumanization of them that can occur. And when we hear this, what happened with Donna, right, we're hearing that she's putting this fight as almost as if it's her getting divorced. And when you get to this place, you're going to win at all costs. And when you win at all costs, that would also tell me that she potentially had this mindset long before Wendi had met Dan. And then we're looking at her daughter being guilted and her shaming her and kind of using her in a sense of probably being in control, and created this dynamic, this narcissistic family dynamic from these when they were very, very young. So her getting to this place now, she's probably not lost a lot of things in her life, so to speak, and been able to use money, power, and control to do that. And as we heard the language, she was taking on this fight as if it was her own.
Jennifer Brandt, you've tried many of these cases, been in the middle of it, been in the trenches. How common is it for the in-laws to play such a prominent role in the litigation, in the battle, the custody battle, the divorce?
You know, Vinny, the biggest problem that I have as an attorney and my fellow attorneys is having third parties whispering in the ear of your client and trying to influence your client and saying what they think is right and wrong. Those are the people that are most dangerous in the divorce, because they are not involved in the day-to-day aspect of the divorce, but they're emotional. They want to control the situation, and grandparents are prime suspects in this, especially when it comes to grandchildren. You know, oftentimes they have a close relationship with the grandchildren. They want to be involved in the grandchildren's lives, and they're fearful that they may not be as involved, you know, because the other party is going to have the children part of the time. So, you know, there's a lot of influence that they can have on a person, and it really can disrupt the whole proceeding. And areas where parties may have agreed, maybe they are not able to agree because you have these other people whispering in their ear and telling them what to do and trying to control the outcome. So, and this Donna Adelson, boy, she really sounds like she was controlling all of it. Even her own daughter mentioned, you know, that she's overprotective. And looking at the email, hearing the email, it's like an us against, you know, our whole family against Dan Markel. We need to win. I mean, these kind of sentiments really don't belong in a custody proceeding or a divorce proceeding.
Carl, having studied all this, watched the trials, and read all the evidence in here, what's your take? What does your gut tell you about the Adelson family? Was it about entitlement and they're just used to getting what they want? Was it bitterness because things got very personal? Like, I think all of us have the difficulty trying to understand how a family that had so much and the opportunity to do so much and provide so much could get to the point of ordering a hit.
Right. Well, I think if you look at their history, this wasn't the first conflict they had in their life on a major scale. But what has happened is in the past, they could always win the conflict through money and political connections. And that's what I think they were banking on. They thought there's no way that Dan Markel, despite him being a highly successful, highly respected professor of international fame, despite him being gunned down, they can overcome that. They had no fear. In fact, even Charlie, in his own trial, we heard from the jail calls, had no fear of losing the case at all. He thought he had won. He thought his attorney had done a great job. And then lo and behold, he suddenly loses, and he's just absolutely baffled by this. So I think they just thought that whatever they say goes, and they're always able to con and win people over.